of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa. This is the American Greed Factory.
There is danger outside, so don't go outside. You will never be able to judge for yourself how bad it is. You are better off in your own home. Eight, arrangements will be made as soon as possible to treat any people who are ill or injured. Details will be given about what to do, when to do it, and how. If anyone dies, move the body to another room in the house. Label the body with name and address, and cover it as tightly as possible in polythene, paper, sheets, or blankets. Tie a second card to the covering. The radio will advise you what to do about taking the body away for burial. If, however, you have had a body in the house for more than 5 days, and if it is safe to go outside, then you should bury the body for the time being in a trench or cover it with earth and mark the spot of the burial.
Yeah, here we are again, America. Welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Colin.
Still disposing of bodies in a very polite way.
Stiff upper lip. No crying when disposing of bodies.
Went into the store 3 times this week. I said, "Do you have any polythene?" Here we call that visqueen. So,
I don't know what either is.
oh, it's plastic sheets. It's
Oh,
heavy,
okay.
heavy density plastic sheets.
Some Dexter shit.
Yeah, I don't know why we call it visqueen and they call it polythene, but we do. Also, that was in the 70s. Maybe they don't call it that.
Some adhesive.
Yeah, it's just something. What's adhesive?
It's how British people say adhesive.
Oh, aluminium for model building decals. Hey, we're gonna talk about putting decals on our models. It's like, what the fuck's he putting on your phone? Oh, you mean decals? And the Australians do it the same way. We're gonna go decaling today. What's he doing? Putting stickers on. Alrighty. It's like, what? This does not sound this exciting.
I was watching the Forgotten Weapons live thing because they're reaching their subscriber, the end of their Kickstarter, and yeah, they're talking about the production of the EM2, and because the EM2 is a predecessor to the what's it, the L85?
Okay.
Their current bullpup, I think they're replacing it.
Field?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And although that's supposed to be trash compared to the EM2, I guess, but I don't know. I don't have the book yet. And so yeah, he's sitting there talking. They're like talking about like if there was a way to make it today, and it's a lot of stuff about old processes, and it's how the old processes aren't necessarily like it's lost to time. Nobody can make this rifle now. It's like no, we just make it differently now because it'd be easier and more efficient.
Yeah, we'd make it work. It's just like, yeah, the SR-71 kind of gets put in that category. They could never make that again. It's like, well, they would have no need to. The satellite does the same thing. But yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, so he's like, they're talking about all the different processes, and he kept saying additive, and I'm like, what the fuck is he saying? He's like, and then he's like talking about different glue and stuff like that, and it's like a multi-epoxy glue, and they have a different name for it. And I was like, oh, adhesive, okay.
Yeah, you're getting caught in that received pronunciation that they use that we don't.
Which I'm wondering how he says, Sir, what would just be this? Okay, adhesive to adhere. Like, how does he say adhere?
Adhere. I don't know. See how it adheres? I'm just being difficult.
Now, I will say like Americans' version of English is better, but I feel like a lot of times we go for style over substance, and sometimes the British people go with, well, this is how you're supposed to say it. Yeah, but it sounds stupid.
Pedophile. They've charged many pedophiles. What are they talking about? No, it's called received pronunciation. You can look it up. It's weird. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be proper English, but considering there's way more of us than them, at this point, it's like, yeah, the English, yeah, this is American English is fine with almost 90% of the world at this point.
And then they're talking about how they do it today is how you do it with the CNC machine, and basically you just take a block and you would CNC like both sides of the receiver,
Yeah.
and then just weld it all together.
Oh, yeah, you'd use a three-dimensional machine plant, which didn't exist back then, with metal qualities that are like purities that were not even thinkable in the 1980s or whatever. So,
But at least that's like the easy way they'd do it, I guess. But
yeah.
I mean, they could probably do it the old way. They just like there's not necessarily the infrastructure isn't around for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
And
efficiency and lowering cost.
but that was a thing made in the fucking 50s, and it had like, you know, a predecessor to, what, plastic, or what do you call that? I mean, it is plastic, but like what it?
Bakelite?
Yeah, yeah. I think they're using because there's that Bakelite AR-15, but I think this predates that.
Well, Bakelite was just like early epoxy, I believe.
Yeah.
It was like a two-part thing. You mix it together, you put it under heat, and you form the mold. Actually, Dad would know a lot about that.
Yeah.
You probably very familiar with that. Get him down here.
It's also used to stop giant robots and Neon Genesis Evangelion.
It works. Two-part polymers.
Yeah. So, what are we talking about? Oh yeah, you were talking about model things, right?
Well, no. What I was just talking about, we were talking about weird when you hear British people talk quickly about things that they're fascinated with, and they use their weird words, which are our words, but they're pronouncing completely differently from their words. But you were talking about the infield battle rifle.
Yeah, I think it's LA-85.
Yeah.
Because that's what the book. It goes from. I forget the name of the book. It's Thornycroft to L-85. I think that's SA-85.
Yeah.
I think that's it. But it's going through the British bullpups, so that's the same way that Ian's book went through French military rifles, or at least French standard military infantry rifles.
Well, you know what the old British sergeants say about the infield? It makes them miss the FAL even more.
Yeah, I hear the SA-85 is a piece of shit, but
Yeah, they're not good. They're just they're made on the. I mean, well, you'll know because you'll have the whole documentary. It was like how much stamped metal and plastic, can we incorporate into this in the 70s and 80s? And it's like, well, not much, not very well. But it's like you already have a main battle rifle called the FAL, which is, I mean, it's a big, heavy caliber gun, but it works. And everyone likes it. It even has a carry handle, which was always cool. I like it when you see those old FALs in gun stores that still have the carry handle. It's like, wow, blast from the past.
yeah, I think there's a lot of compromises to the SA-85 because it was like it could have been a real good rifle, and it still can be, but for cost reasons, it's not.
Someone told me something. I remember I read a book about the development of because we have the Virginia submarine. Now that's a co-development with us in British Aerospace. They have the same submarine. It's called the Trafalgar. But they were talking about the systems we have in our Virginias versus their Trafalgars, and how it's like we're building a lot more, but we're building like our cost procurement is like it's almost half. It's like, why are we building the same submarine? You're paying twice as much. And they sort of they did like a thing, like, let's sit down and look at this. And then they studied why. And it's like, yeah, their procurement system over there is a nightmare because everyone who represents every county. It's kind of like what we have here with the senators. When you know, like the F-35, why does it cost $100 million a plane? It's like, well, because they got to build this part in Georgia and this part in. But imagine like a whole country.
Yeah.
Then you've got half the people that over there that are like voting on the bills and doing the defense things also own parts of the company. I mean, it's the same corruption we have here. It's just there it's on a smaller scale, and it's like even more obvious.
I also say because a lot of England is historic. There doesn't seem to be a lot of like purpose-built facilities, so they're just like making do with what they have.
Yeah, there's a lot of that too.
Because like you see that in like car manufacturing, where it's like, it's like, well, make the Range Rover here, and you see the facilities, and there's like everything. It's just like all flat top. They don't have anything with no overhead stuff, no like what do you call it? Like, like those things where you like have the grates and you can work underneath the car and stuff like that. There's like none of that shit. It's just like you're and like they're making do with what they have, and it's like poorly implemented. Making luxury SUVs and basically someone's garage.
Yeah. Same thing you made like sop with camels in World War I. Yeah, there's a lot of things, but anyway, that whole article I read about the difference between how we procure things for our military and how they do is really eye-opening. It makes us the things we do look wildly efficient.
Yeah.
Like and the whole European system's like that, but it's not just the UK. Go to Germany.
I imagine it's probably exacerbated by the UK because I imagine they don't have the materials on hand like we do.
No, they probably don't, and they don't have a. They have a lot. What did somebody say about them? They have a lot of technicians, but not a lot of engineers. Like it's kind of one of those countries too, where you get a lot of guys who can weld the metal together. Whereas we have a big shortage of guys that can weld the metal together. We have plenty of engineers. It's just like we just don't have the guys that are willing to weld the metal together because everyone. It's like, well, I can study that for 3 years to weld the metal together, or go an extra year and be an engineer. So why don't I just be an engineer? Because that's what I've heard. Because trade school there is, I think, paid for by the government in entirety.
Yeah.
Whereas college is not. And
I mean, the expense of college is considerably less than it is here.
Not the ass raping that it is here. Have higher income levels than they do, but yeah, it's so I think that they're like a country of technicians. And it's purely driven by economics, not smarts or anything. It's just like, well, I can go to school for free, or I can go to school and have a £60,000 loan that may or may not be forgiven if we go to war or something. We have those weird programs too. But yeah, it was interesting to read that article and learn about. It's like, oh, you think the Pentagon sucks? Hold my beer. They'll try to force a fighter in Germany. Good luck. Because in Europe, everything runs through Airbus now. Because that is a fully modern, like, fully capable manufacturing company, finally.
Yeah.
But they want to make everything. They want to make all the helicopters, all the fighter planes. And it's like, well, yeah, there's no corruption there. And Airbus is a giant French-German conglomerate. So the countries do not feel comfortable. Like, if you look at the last 100 years, we weren't all friends all the time. I don't know if we want all our eggs in that one basket. So I know that's how the British do it. Like they just do all their stuff. They'll either partner with us because they're pretty sure we won't attack them. Kind of sure. Or you could be like Australia, where you just farm your whole defense industry to the U.S. As long as like, can we put the frames on the Jeeps here? Yeah, we'll give you that. Sure. We'll set you up a plant. You can bolt the frames and the bodies, or the bodies on the frames. That'll be your country's contribution.
Well, I'm not sure. I think the use the Steyr AUG is still their main battle rifle. Australians.
Oh yeah, that couldn't surprise me.
Yeah, there's something I saw. There's recently a released document about like why they chose it over the M16, and it's mostly it's like survived some They put it in a barrel just like full of shit, and like the first barrel they put it in, nothing survived it. Like
Yeah.
neither rifle survived it, but there was like one, but it survived a couple more barrels of just random shit than the M16. That's why they chose it. Well, other reasons too, but I
I
think
like it when the Australians were trying to get into the nuclear game with us. Like they wanted to make basing arrangements with us at one time. You can imagine how long ago this is. They don't even let our nuclear vessels dock. I think it's New Zealand does that, but anyway, one of those countries doesn't. But in the 50s, they wanted to get into basing arrangements where we would like base nuclear weapons in Australia.
yeah.
It was a huge cash cow, and so we did a test. It was somewhere in the interior of Australia where we set off a nuclear bomb, and this was before the test ban treaty, so this puts it back into the 50s. And they wanted to see how good their Centurion tanks would hold up to the bombing. So they just parked the tank near where the bomb went off. And this was not a hydrogen bomb, I'm assuming. Anyway, they lit it off, and it's like, well, some of the rubber burned on the outside. They jumped in, started it right up, drove it back to base. Now, all three of the guys that drove it back got severe radiation sickness. Didn't die. And one side of the tank, the paint was a really light color, and the other side, where it was in shadow, was really dark. But they just took that tank and let it sit somewhere and kept it in service until the 70s. Stripped the paint off of it, got all the rubber shit off of it. And yeah, but the reason the Australians did that is they wanted us to show them, it's like, what would it be like if a nuke hit somewhere in Australia, and how would our equipment hold up? Okay, we can do that for you. We like to light these things off and just record the results. But then they did not want anything nuclear in their country because it just made them a big target. So, but yeah, I forget what that test. No, that actually, did they not use a nuclear weapon? I'm not sure. There was something weird about it because I know it was secret for a long time. Like nobody knew about it till the 80s. So it just came out. But yeah, that was interesting. They decided it's like, yeah, maybe we're not interested in this. But yeah, they just farmed the whole thing out, and which is fine for them because why spend all this money to have this at-home defense thing when you can just buy everything?
Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty sure we're not going to attack. They know who their enemies are, not us. They know the big red panda is the problem, and of course it seems like half their politicians can't wait to sell them to the Chinese either. That's weird when you hear about those guys.
Yeah, it's somewhat with that one.
You want an Anschluss with China? Okay.
Well,
Isn't
that
Pine
net,
Gap talks about?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty much mostly the political intrigue in Pine Gap.
It's also true, but
And stuff with the indigenous population, the
well, the Aborigines?
yeah, the Aborigines.
Yeah, I don't know much about them.
Nice. Oh yeah, and then there's in the the French rifle book. Like now they're switching away from the FAMAS to the M16, but that 416, what, HK 416? I think that's what it's called. That's the piston-driven one that the Marine Corps uses. So apparently everyone's just picking that one up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because you don't have that dirty gas recovery system.
Yeah.
It's the fouling. New gun channel.
Oh, it's not really new. It's Lucky Gunner Ammo. I talked about it a little bit. I think they have good even keeled gun stuff.
Oh, okay.
But there's not really a big personality. But it's like, here's some stuff. Yeah, they do, and they'll do stuff about ammo, and they do a lot of things where like they bring up statistics. They do a lot of home defense stuff where it's like, here's the statistics of what's likely going to happen in a home defense situation, and how like everything is marketed towards all this stuff that's pretty much bullshit.
Yeah.
Like something happens in a movie, and then some gun manufacturer makes something like, yeah, you want this for home defense. It's like, well, it's not really practical, but
Flamethrower or something.
Once I was getting into those, like the Shockwave, those weird short-barreled shotguns that aren't technically shotguns.
Bird head handles, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are
And I saw an explanation as to like why everything in there is designed the way it is, because it's like a normal shotgun, but they cut 4 inches off of it, and then the why they have that handle stick out like that is because with the handle sticking out that way, it technically makes it 26 inches, so it makes it not a concealable weapon.
Right.
So like everything about it is it's just not a thing, because if it doesn't have a stock, then it's not a shotgun by the NFA definition. If it's
Right.
26 long, it's 26 inches long. It's not concealable, so it's not like concealable weapon. So it's just a firearm.
Yeah. It's just something that shoots bullets.
Then I was gonna rant about other YouTube stuff, or yeah, I remember there's a, because like when you watch some gun channels, you get suggested more gun channels.
Yeah.
And so one thing I hate about YouTube is the way they just like bait you in to click something. And there's this one guy's channel, like, so the headline on it was like, why SHOT Show this year was a disaster, and then he's just like looking down all sad, and there's like kind of darkness background, and I fucking hate that shit.
Yeah.
Because it's not like he's gonna like, you're gonna click on that and like you're gonna get insightful commentary. It's like you just clicked on it. It's like that's all he wants. So
Yeah. There was nothing about. I remember this one because it's like, why was it a disaster? Nothing. It was crickets. It's like, well,
So-
this is what we did at SHOT Show.
I never watched that video. I immediately said, "Do not recommend this channel to me ever again."
Slam the door on it. Huh?
Yeah, fuck this. Well, like Wrangler Star does that shit too, and I almost like I don't watch like half his videos if they have that fucking stupid shit on it, where he's like forlorn and like why I quit the wubba. I'm like, fuck you. Whatever is funny. Why are you constantly like having to quit things and all this other shit? I don't care.
Why I cut my penis off at home. Wait a minute, what?
And, it's like staring sadly off into the corner.
How that doesn't happen. It's just a metaphor.
Yeah.
I wanted to see a dickless man.
Would you fuck me?
Goodbye.
And that shit gets clicks, but so I hate it and I don't. Because also, like, because it's like a lot of these fucking gun channels, these guys are usually conservative and also anti-media, and here they are parading around using the shitty media's idea to get you to watch things and then criticizing the media and using the exact same methods they do to get your attention.
The media is exploiting your fear. So are you. Go do this shit on BitChute if you're the 10 neo-Nazis that are going to watch this. See if they're buying your fucking t-shirt. Show them who's in charge. Yeah, I get that. I get that with history stuff. Sometimes I'll get suggested history or like the secret the Russians don't want you to know, and it's like, we already know about this. We knew about this when all the information was declassified in the 90s. The Russians were building anthrax at industrial scale. Like, yeah, the Dead Hand, I read it. But they don't even like go to the place. Like, if they were in Russia, like, this is where they did it. It's like, oh, that'd be cool. They're showing pictures out of a book. It's like, I can do that.
or the Wikipedia entry as they narrate.
Yeah.
There's one like that I actually saw, because there's a lot of like quote unquote YouTube documentaries that's just moving pictures and shit, and it's like, and they're not fucking, what's that guy that does like all the war documentaries?
Oh, Dan Carlin.
No,
Um,
the PBS guy.
Mark Felton. No. Yeah. Ken Burns.
Yeah, Ken Burns. Yeah. They try to do like Ken Burns stuff, and no, and but when I saw, I think I was watching Ghost in the Shell stuff, and somebody did a documentary about Ghost in the Shell, and that was actually pretty interesting because like I had no idea about the origins of Ghost in the Shell. Well, I mean, I had some idea, but I didn't know like like necessarily where it started. Like I knew it was a comic book before it was a movie, but I didn't know like the guy who created Ghost in the Shell, like he basically wanted to make an action comic, and there's like a lot more sex and like just tits and stuff like that, and it's more comedy in the original Ghost in the Shell, but it has all like the same design and stuff like that. And then that guy got tired of making that, and he just went on full making like hentai pornography. Like that's what he went on to do.
Okay.
So that was his full thing. And then the guy who directed the movie, he kind of made Ghost in the Shell what it is today. So I think that's just a wild origin story. It's like this pornographer came up with Ghost in the Shell, but like didn't want to take it forward anymore. And then some guy actually did something way more interesting with it.
It's like you have this great marketable idea in this cool world. It's like, no, I want to make cartoon schoolgirls. Okay. That's really my passion. Japanese schoolgirls in short skirts with cat ears, tentacles invading their nethers. It's like, all right, good on you. Can we have the rights to this before you go? Yeah, that's weird. I did not know that. That surprised me now that I hear it. But,
Yeah. Well, I just don't think I don't think. Well, like Ghost in the Shell has such like a prestigious sort of, I don't know, critical reception that you wouldn't think of its origins of being like, you know, semi-pornographic.
yeah. Yeah, that's a marketable property known around the world. We've heard of it, everyone's heard of it.
I mean, it'd be like if Debbie Does Dallas became like
Charlie Angels.
or like somehow fuck, what am I forgetting? What's that? What was that HBO cowboy show? Deadwood?
Oh yeah.
It'd be like if Deadwood was somehow originated from the original Debbie Does Dallas.
Debbie Does Dallas. Origins.
What is it? This is a great show, but what does this have to do with a porno?
Yeah. This must be a 70s porno.
There's a story and a plot.
Yeah, they're shooting it on film.
Anyways, yeah, so that was probably an interesting. That was probably one of the more interesting. That bit kind of just made the whole documentary, so I'm not sure how like that guy does a bunch of anime documentaries, but I'm not sure how much like, you know, sometimes you don't want to go down anime holes because it's never ending and it's full of awfulness,
nonsensical loops. How did we end up here? Mental illness. My parents, they didn't want to lose face. So now I'm crazy. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, Japan, I get it. Everyone's a few bricks short of a load in Japan.
Yeah, AEW is back to live wrestling events.
Oh, where at? What states?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, they just don't care there?
So here's the weird thing.
Sign a waiver when you go in?
So the Tony Khan who runs AEW, his dad owns the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay.
The Jacksonville Jaguars stadium area, like the parking lot, is like a drive-by testing area for COVID-19.
Okay.
So because of that connection, they have tests on hand, and so they're testing everybody before they enter the show, like the whole crew, everybody. And so it's not just like they're not just doing temperature checks and stuff like that.
Okay.
So then they got to do a live show again. Now, I mean, wrestling's been going on. Wrestling hasn't stopped, even though this has been going on. But they've been doing they usually been doing tape shows. Like the last month, pretty much all the shows except for one were tape shows. So they have like one live show and then they tape like 4 weeks of shows. Which I believe they're doing that again this week. So now they're taping shows for the next subsequent weeks to come. And so like they just had like a ton of people there.
Wow.
Well, at first they had the thing where it's like, you know, you had the wrestlers acting as the crowd, but then they would pan around it's Daly's Place. It's this open air cathedral or amphitheater that's like right next to the stadium, the Jacksonville Jaguar Stadium.
Okay.
So that's where they film it. And like so before, like, I mean, one show they didn't have anybody in the crowd, and that was like probably like the hardest one to watch because it was just kind of weird. And then they had to run to Georgia before they shut down because Florida started to shut down then. So now Florida's opening up slightly again, so that's why they're filming in Florida. But also, like, they have these tests, so then they're guaranteed. But they're like flipping the camera around, and you can see like there's people in the stands. They're like crew and stuff like that, but they're out there in the stands and yelling and stuff. It's like, oh, they just got people like all over the fucking place. The last match of the night where it was a street fight, so it's basically Falls Count Anywhere, and like there's like ladders and tables and all this shit. And there's a really funny part where they just ran down a guy with a golf cart. And while they're doing that, there's like, you know, there's just like people back there. There's like whole families, and some people are wearing masks, some people aren't. They had Jake the Snake Roberts there, who's like in his 70s and a lifelong smoker and drug addict. And, you know, it's like, hey, let's not, you know, let's have him stay at home maybe. But no, like they had him come out with a snake and drape it over an unconscious woman. But yeah, so that was pretty crazy. So, I mean, they did have testing, so there's that good. But here's another thing. So UFC is going to have their fight, I think this weekend. Maybe it's on right now. And they're doing it in Jacksonville as well. And so one of their fighters tested positive for COVID-19.
Okay.
So the show's still going, but that match is now canceled. That guy is staying at the hotel that all the AEW wrestlers are staying at.
Okay, good. Oh, great.
I mean, they have like that. They can test them plenty of times, so I mean, they have that at their disposal. But you know, it just seems kind of weird. So.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a good idea,
but it was a good show.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was. Florida leads the way.
Well, I don't think we covered that before, but like essentially, Vince McMahon. Well, I guess not. So it got basically interpreted as bribery, even though it's like it technically wasn't. So like Linda McMahon is head of like some fundraising pack for the GOP in Florida, and then like there was a donation from the PAC to the GOP, like for $18 million, not directly from WWE, just the PAC she runs.
Yeah,
and then following that, wrestlers were then declared essential workers.
Okay.
In Florida.
I'm liking this. Nothing's giving me pause.
So that's how they've been able to continue. Also, for a brief moment there, WWE went back to live tapings, because the rating they're tanking in the ratings right now. Like it's the lowest they've ever been. But it's, you know, the situation. It's weird to watch with no crowd.
Well, me and Stacy noticed something last night. They had some women's wrestling on. It was the no crowd stuff.
Yeah.
We were on a menu screen where you couldn't see, and it sounds like porno, but there's no audience noise, and it's just two women wrestling.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, this sounds like porno. It's just like, it's like,
yeah.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
That's a new, there's like a new, I think it's like an Instagram feed where it's like, is this porno or is it wrestling? That came up out of that.
Okay, good. You notice, like, this sounds like someone's getting railed.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, you know, it's usually better when there's a crowd yelling at the people. Just
yeah. That doesn't seem. Even then, if they were getting railed, it's like, well, it's okay because there's lots of people.
We've all consented to this. Yeah. What was I talking about?
Oh, wrestlers being essential workers.
Oh yes, oh yeah. So they went. So the ratings are on the decline, the lowest they've ever been, and Vince McMahon was so scared because in the agreement for their contract, their television contracts, they're obligated to produce like 48 live shows and like 4 tape shows.
Oh,
And they've already ran through all their tape shows, and so they're like out of a panic. It's like, if we don't keep making live shows, then they can breach our contract and they'll take away our billions of dollars.
yeah. We just got to keep churning this stuff out.
Yeah.
Emerging money with
or putting people's lives in risk. Like, no, we got to keep churning this out. And then eventually, like NBC and Fox said, like, no, you're good. Don't fucking put people in danger.
kill everyone. We got to do this. I don't care who dies. We can't lose our contract. Oh, you're fine.
Well, I mean,
well,
it's literally the only thing they have. Like,
yeah.
And also they fired a bunch of people recently, and this is still going to be their most profitable year ever.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, like, yeah, they're a live event producer. Now they're making no money from live events. Their sales for their merchandise is of course down. The only thing that's like, I guess, better because of this is that because they're running the same venue every week and it's a venue they usually own, they're saving a lot of money there without doing travel costs, but
yeah.
But that's probably that travel cost is probably pretty easily recovered from a 4,000 to 10,000 people show.
Yeah, oh yeah. They're not paying that much.
Although you don't have to pay the wrestlers for their travel stuff because they're independent contractors.
That's right, the old 1090.
An independent contractor who can only exclusively work for one company.
God bless the working man. God bless them all.
Yeah, so that's wrestling with COVID-19.
Yep. Wrestling with viruses. Wrestling with viruses. Let's see, we made some bug out bags this week.
Yeah.
We made I took a different spin on this.
Okay, me too. But I don't have a whole list of things, but they're very specific on how they are.
Yeah, I have a whole list of things, but I except for the vehicle, which I know is available in Australia, I kind of went with Australian products, being Mad Max is an Australian product.
Okay.
I didn't necessarily think I would be in Australia during this, but I figured, well, why not? Because themes. And because I've actually thought about this before. So for my the end of times, Mad Max, which has different. The origin story shifted over the years. Originally, it was we ran out of oil, then it was we ran out of water. But whatever, it's all the same. It's just a cool backdrop for just crazy road vehicles in Australia. So my vehicle was going to be the 1990 Ford F350 diesel with the dually, and this uses the International Harvester 6.9 liter diesel engine. There's a few reasons I chose this engine and this actually is not the engine in this model, but they don't make specific engines like that. So. But this would be the rest of the truck. This is what it would look like. It's a 4-stroke, 8-cylinder diesel that is not turbocharged, and it does not it uses direct injection, which means the fuel injector basically squirts the gas into a hole above the intake valve, and then the valve opens and the gas goes in. It's very simple, electromechanical. You can run solid-state glow plugs on this. It means you can put your own push-button glow plug in, so it's not integrated with the system. So when they burn out, you don't have to, the truck's not useless. You just put your own system in. They've been making these. Ford had International make these because they couldn't make diesel engines this big back when they introduced them in 1983. And and the 6.9 liters are known to have thick sidewalls, cast iron. Everything in diesel's heavy duty because
Yeah.
of the engine. So this is basically a clockwork engine. It's not dependent on a lot of technology. The reason I went away from a supercharger is if there are certain valves and pressure checks valves that can go out on a turbocharged diesel engine, and it'll just blow the head right off the top of it. And those valves can become plugged very easily. They have to be replaced pretty consistently. Now, the thing with a turbocharged diesel engine is they're a lot more powerful than this. This only produces 160 horsepower, but almost 400 foot-pounds of torque. So this thing does not go fast, but it could carry a lot of weight. And the reason you have the dually package in it is those are very heavy-duty springs, and that's so you have all that equipment right there. But you can make a form of fuel called black diesel, which is essentially it is oil, waste oil. I would use petroleum-based, not vegetable-based, because that brings a lot of extra problems. You have a gas centrifuge in here that's powered by a little generator, and you can spin the oil and filtrate it through micron filters, and then you add a certain amount of petroleum or natural gas or anything you can find that's flammable, and it will burn like diesel fuel. And there'll be plenty of it available. Basically, in the sumps of any car you find that has oil in it, you can just burn old oil. You can spin it up, add a little gasoline, other diesel fuel, or any kind of enriched fuel. You can use alcohol, but it's going to get really hot. But you don't necessarily have to distill just alcohol. You can distill a lot. You can make crude petroleum out of a lot of things. And these vehicles, as long as it's filtered properly, will run them. Now, they're not going to run swimmingly. I mean, they're going to smoke like, coal burning train. But you can run them off black oil. There's people that do it. And this is actually a real representation of a setup a guy has. I just took pictures of it. And now I don't know if that would fit or be safe in the back of a truck. But you've got to stay mobile.
Yeah.
So that's why that vehicle was picked, because you can run it on garbage. It's a 40-year-old engine. It's a proven engine. Parts, there's still lots of these trucks around. So parts, pinion, gears, running gears, all that stuff will be readily available. Ford did not make huge changes to the heavy-duty work trucks until like 2012, 2015 is when they started introducing new axles and so everything from basically 1980 until the mid-2000s, those parts are all going to be interchangeable, and there's a lot of them around. Now, the engine parts are not going to be interchangeable. These engines, there's a guy on YouTube that has one of these. I think he just did a ring job on it. It's got 900,000 miles on it. It's just preposterous. And the other thing with running black diesel is because it's spun up from oil with just other additives to make it more flammable, it's also very lubricated. So it's, you're not going to, unless you're just running full out RPMs, you're not going to be burning up your engine. Now, F-350s were made and they were available in Australia. I don't know if this type was. I don't know if the one made at Kentucky Truck, sourced by International Harvester Diesel, ever made it to Australia. That would be a really expensive truck to have in Australia. But you never know. Or maybe these were made in Kansas City. Then, so that's my vehicle. That was a little overlong. I thought of this, so I'm just going to use this. And so then for the jacket, or for the shotgun, I found out what kind of shotgun he had. It's a VG Bentley, which is basically a Spanish 12-gauge shotgun. The closest you could come to a gun like that in America would be an Ithaca Arms.
Okay.
12-gauge double-barrel shotgun made from the 70s until about the 90s. Because Ithaca and I forget what VG stands for. It's something in Spanish. They use the same tool.
Okay.
So that's what you would have for the shotgun. I didn't really go too deep on other guns because there are all kinds of weird guns in Mad Max across all the movies. They're everything from crossbows to Glocks to So it's just like, yeah, whatever you want. There's no special gun in Mad Max except his sawn-off shotgun, which he reached for a lot, especially. And a lot of this, I kind of go towards the very first movie, the original Mad Max. So I kind of base a lot of things off of that. But because he always used the shotgun, and the reason he never used the pistol, which he had in a holster, was because it was a rubber prop, and they didn't have the money to make it look real. But the shotgun was real. So there's one scene where he gets shot in the leg, and you notice he's crawling towards a shotgun, and he has a pistol right on his side. But for budgetary purposes, it's like, just go for the shotgun because we can't make that rubber pistol look real. And then for a knife, I went with the double-bladed pig hunting dagger from Mother Mountain Forge in Australia, which is a, just a really cool $700, dagger. It's about this long. They use a lot of weapons like that in Mad Max. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, so, and you got to have a jacket. And you got to have the jacket that the Mad Max was based on, which is the Shot Perfecto leather motorcycle jacket, which was also worn by, who was the guy on the waterfront? Marlon Brando's jacket.
Oh, okay.
This is just a modified version of this. The Perfecto has epaulets on it, so you can put that weird armor stuff that they only had on the right shoulder. You can make that yourself because the jacket's $900. And let's see, and then of course you got to have the boots, and those are got to have boots for the apocalypse. And those are not made anymore, but you can buy them. They're an Australian manufacturer called Rossiter, and they're just called biker boots. They don't make that style anymore, but you can find them on eBay all day long for $300. Used and new. And you're going to need somewhere to sleep with your, weird gas refinery truck. So why not get the RV5 from OzTent? OZTENT. All this stuff is made for the Australian bush, which means it's all canvas. It's all waterproof canvas. You don't wash it. You don't do anything with it. Kind of made for a dry climate more than anything, but I love canvas material like that because it's really durable, lasts forever. So get you an OzTent. It's only $900.
It kind of looks like a back of a car.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's called the RV5. It's made to hook onto the back or side of your vehicle, so it gives you like shelter from the sun, and then you climb in it and sleep.
Huh.
And if you're gonna sleep, go to Murchison River Swags and Bags and get you. We have an idea in America. We call these like sleeping bags. In Australia, they have like these, again, this is canvas, and this is the last canvas plant in Australia makes these. So it's made from Australian cotton, which is that real long grain cotton that grows in dry environments. It's not the kind of cotton we have here. So again, this is a canvas sleeping bag with a gel mattress under it. So you just kind of lay it on the ground and you pull this thing over you. And the reason it's made out of that canvas is all the murderous insects that live in that godforsaken sun-blasted country can't bite you through the canvas. And it also looks really cool. But it's just called a deluxe double. It's called a swag bag. It's only $800. I don't know what that is in American. So that's and then what else did I find that was interesting Australian products? Oh, Travel Buddy 12-volt heater. You hook that up in your car or whatever, and you can, have a Pop-Tart or something. They don't sell things like this in America very much. This one you just plug right in, probably because it's a huge fire hazard. And also in America, you don't have to drive 20 hours to get someplace. So they have some unique products over there. That's only $215, and that's in U.S. dollars. I thought that was interesting. And of course, get you a Australian hatchet for beating motorcycle-bound people that are attacking your vehicle, because that's the best way to attack a giant vehicle is with a motorcycle. Get you a Hardcore Hardware GT Tactical Tomahawk with Teflon finish, whatever that means. Hey, whatever it is, it's from Australia. Price unavailable in U.S.
Bacon egg on it.
Yeah. And then there is, remember I found last week, I found some unique, like, reconstituted camping food place in England. Australia has their own company called Campers Pantry. And they have kind of, it's a lot of dehydrated food that you got to add water to. Some of it isn't. They have some interesting, here's some things that are interesting that they have that's kind of like, this is more to their palate than ours. They have freeze-dried raspberry-infused apple wedges. Freeze-dried apple wedges infused with black currant. And then they have, of course, blueberries and bananas. We have those too. And that's just kind of like, that's your breakfast. Let's see what's on the lunch menu. Some of this stuff actually looks pretty good. Try this. Hummus, yep, that's interesting. Tuna and black beans.
Okay.
It's like a lunch thing. Combination I would have never thought
No,
of.
it sounds
They have all
awful,
regular-
but I guess if you have light
They have regular
seasoning.
stuff here too, but I'm just going for the highlights. Tuna salsa, which is tuna, fish mixed with salsa.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Yeah, it'd probably be good. Dinner's where it takes a turn. It gets interesting. Some of it sounds really good. Some of it, I don't know. We have apricot chicken. I think they have that here too. Beef and black bean.
Yeah.
Vegetable curry.
Okay.
Lamb casserole.
All right.
Cauliflower and pea dye, which I looked at it. That's like a really spicy bean.
Okay.
Mango curry chicken.
Yeah.
Moroccan pork. I didn't really think much about that. Spaghetti bolognese. That's like a fried spaghetti?
No, it's just
Thought that was
spaghetti.
kind of Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's like I don't know what it means to call it bolognese, but it's just
I thought it
spaghetti.
meant fried. Okay.
As far as I know, like, so you have spaghetti and meatballs. So you know how you have to so you have spaghetti and meatballs. So you're gonna have you're gonna have your noodles in one part, and then you're gonna have your spaghetti and meatballs, and then you're gonna put them together. Bolognese is just like you're gonna put that shit together, and then that's spaghetti bolognese.
Okay. I get
Now
it.
it might be more specific than that, but whenever I've seen something referred to as spaghetti bolognese, it's just like the shit thrown together.
Okay.
But I don't look that up. So
Then they have one-
also bolognese is a weird word because it's like bologna. It's like you wouldn't pronounce it how it looks.
Okay.
Good old bologna.
I had to watch a video.
Okay.
I would have said spaghetti bolognese.
Yeah.
I'm from the middle part of an ignorant country. And then they
Hey,
have
there's a how quinoa was a big thing for a while. It's like, like what's quinoa? And then like you see things like what's quinoa? And then at some point, oh, they're the same thing.
they have something new that's better than quinoa. It's quinoa. What does this mean? We have tuna.
Do they have Vegemite on anything?
Not yet.
Okay.
I don't think that keeps well. I don't know.
I don't even know what that is. That's Australian, right? Or is it just like some British thing?
The Australian. No, it's
Okay.
like powder.
Okay.
To me, it's putting. You can get it here. It's like putting stale beer on a cracker. With
What?
a strong.
Is
flavor.
Vegemite illegal? Or is there like poutine that's illegal here?
Vegemite, I'm not sure. Good question.
There's one of those like it's like a staple of a country, and then for some reason it's illegal here for reasons.
Well, poutine is like that's in Montreal. That's like biscuits and gravy, but with a piece of bread instead of gravy.
Yeah.
Instead of biscuits. It's like, well, okay, that's biscuits and gravy. But we have something called tuna mornay, which I thought, oh, this might be something interesting. It's tuna cooked with corn and pasta.
All right.
It's it's tuna helper. I was hoping it would be something different, but it's not.
There's a lot. If you look at canned tuna recently, which I'm pretty sure you've had, they have like interesting mixtures where like they'll put like it'll be like the regular tuna in the can, but then they'll have like it'll be mixed with olive oil and like corn and like maybe like some green peppers, and it's like all right to just eat that out of the can without doing anything with it. It's better than just like eating straight up tuna, which is kind of like almost dry and tasteless.
Right. Now they have something called tuna beans, and this is a whole dinner, mind you. Delicious blend of tuna, Mexican beans, capsaicin, eggplant, onion, and red peppers. Just add cold water. Serve on crackers. And everything else is the usual meat and potatoes stuff that you can get anywhere. I was just picking out some of the interesting camper's pantry food that you can survive on in the Mad Max universe. Don't get it sent to America. It's literally like $20 a pouch. You can buy the same stuff here under a different brand for $5. But, you know,
I don't wonder what the shipping and handling on that has to be god awful.
well, I think because as soon as you go to the site, it says we see you're from America, and you click on that, and all the prices change. So I guess that's like rolled into it.
Huh.
I don't know. Because I know one of those sleeping bags, the $800 sleeping bag, it's an extra $100 to get it over here. But that's literally a guy and his wife making those sleeping bags.
Yeah.
Literally the whole company. So they're probably not getting a bulk rate.
Walmart wants to sell your sleeping bags.
Your what was the name of it? It had a name for it.
What, the swag bag or?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So let's see. We got camp foods, then we got water filters. Again, this water filtration stuff is a lot of these are American and or German conglomerates that kind of brand things differently, but you go do some research, it's the same thing. Same company. So, but I tried I picked the Platypus this time, which it has a bag that says dirty and a bag that says clean. And so what you do is you fill the bag with dirty water. There's an inline filter. You hang the dirty water above, and through gravity, siphon, it goes through, and it clean water. It can make 2 liters of clean water every 15 minutes. That's a lot of water.
We're taking a look at the
2 liters
platypus.
is a lot. And this, because the video, the lady's doing it, and it's like she's talking, and there's a little time lapse, and she's cooking with it. And the neat thing about the Platypus is it's a big, huge inline filter that you screw in and screw out. But you just it's one of those self-purging filters, so that when you take pressure off it, all the shit drops out. And they say these get the water absolutely, like there's no little bits in it, like they say.
Yeah.
So it's just 2 plastic bags you fill with water. One dirty, and then the other one, of course, the clean water flows into it. And then when you're done, you don't have to carry water with you. You just roll these things up, and down the road you go.
Looks like you're giving a blood transfusion from one bag to the other.
Yeah, you're giving a blood transfusion, but you're getting rid of syphilis and AIDS, whatever else is in the bags. So that is it. I don't have anything else for that topic. That completes my list.
My list isn't that big, but I guess I went a certain way with it.
Okay.
To go with the weirdness and brokenness of the universe. So my car would be a 1998 Eagle Talon.
Okay. Known for their reliability.
Well, like, because I'm thinking about like Mad Max. When you look at, because even though it's an apocalypse, like none of the cars and stuff used are about like practicality or anything like that. It's just like it was around, we bolted it together, and now it works. So it'd be an Eagle Talon with a lift kit and like really large tires, so it looked completely ridiculous. The visual thing I had in my mind is like, so the Eagle Talon has those little humps on the front hood. So there'd be like a hole that would be cut in half because there's like a hole in the hood, and there's like some grating just welded in place, and so the engine's just exposed. The engine is like a diesel engine, but like one of those Volkswagen like small car diesel engines.
Okay.
One of the illegal ones.
Flew way more than they should.
Yeah.
The ones that actually run like the black diesel that I'm hypothesizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And there'd be other bits like, the back window would be smashed in. That little weird halo thing on the back of the car would be, like chopped into thirds.
Yeah.
And then my rifle I didn't look at the specific company, but those AR-15s that are skeletonized,
Yeah.
so they just have relief cuts just like all over the fucking rifle.
Oh, like a Stackmore foregrip where it's just basically, like you can clearly see the barrel under your hand. There's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
thin piece. Okay, I've seen those.
But because it's in an apocalypse, it's like it's just all taped together with duct tape and paracord to keep it together.
Right.
Like because all those relief cuts aren't there to like they're not impending. They're not a weak point to the like the barrel and lock and breech system. Like that stuff's still fine, but all the aesthetics like the handguard and stuff like is broken but just taped back together. It's like so you have a handle, but it's not the greatest. It might fall off again, but for right now it works. The gas tube is broken, so you have to pull pull the
Cycling it every time you shoot
yes.
it. A big oversized cycling hand.
And then I have a sawed off Chiappa triple barrel shotgun.
Oh, hang on. Hold tight.
Are you looking that up?
Oh, I've seen the Chiappa.
Oh, okay.
I've held one in real life, never fired it. Guy had it on the shelf, was like, let me see that. I cocked her open and I was like, this is strange. How much? And I was like, oh, okay, never mind.
So I figured I'd just use the shotgun from Mad Max, but just add another barrel.
It helps.
And then yeah, that's it.
Okay. That works.
I thought I had like some other stuff, but I guess I don't. I had just like more. Yeah, forget it. Yeah, it was just in my head. I didn't write anything down. It was more about like taking something, breaking it down, and then like having it functional again. So you're not getting anything cool. There's nothing that I got that I was intended to survive the apocalypse with. It's just shit I found, got it working.
Yeah.
And I just like the visualization of thinking of like a skeletonized AR-15, but it's just held together with a bunch of shit.
Yeah. A pinched off gas tube.
Yeah.
Put a big oversized, like put the shifter off of a motorcycle on the cycling. Just, and you're so good at it, it makes it look like the gun was meant to work.
Because that was interesting. Yeah, I saw like the the videos where like Iraq veteran it was eight, it's like 3/8. What is it? Iraq veteran 88 or something. Yeah, they'll do like meltdown videos where they'll shoot a gun till it like melts itself.
Oh yeah, I was doing the Glock 19C, the full Glock.
But yeah, it was like, yeah, at some point when you're doing one of the AR-15s, like the gas tube breaks, and that's by design. It's actually one of the weakest points on there because then you can still function, but you have to cycle it every time. It's no longer fully automatic.
Right.
But it's still functional.
It's still shooting something.
Yeah. So I just like the idea of that. It's like, well, it's not the intended function, but it still works. So I thought that was very Mad Max. And then yeah, I like that. It chose the Eagle Talon just because it's weird. It has the bump. I was gonna choose the Ford Probe, but I thought it also had a bump in the weird bump in the hood. But I didn't. I was looking at it and I didn't see anyone with the weird bumps.
I don't know if the earlier or later models did. That's a good question.
So I'm not sure. Like other cars did that, the weird bump, right? What was that for? Was that just more room for the engine?
Yeah, it was either more room for the engine. It was clearance so they could put the suspension in, but still have a body line. So if the suspension came up, they just put that bump in. Of course, aesthetically, like sometimes they'll have, like the Boss Mustangs, they'll have like that power bulge in the middle. It doesn't really do anything. It's just like
yeah, but at least that's in the middle. Like this car, it's offset, which makes it like extra weird.
Yeah, it was basically probably an engineering compromise.
Yeah. They put the engine in there sideways, and they want to put a blower on it. And we can't do that. It's like, oh, this is where the blower was supposed to go. Directly in your line of sight.
Yeah, yeah, they couldn't. Sometimes, like I said, a lot of that's to compensate for installing the suspension
Okay.
in the car, because you got the pinch suspension where the car is going narrow. It's just like, yeah, just put a hump in there. More to accommodate assembly than it's not like flex space for the suspension to travel.
Oh,
That's
okay.
we got to have a safety there because when we close the hood, we don't want to like crinkle it up.
Car is also all-wheel drive, so that's always nice.
Yeah, those old Eagles from like the 80s, what were those called? Those were actually the only.
How many cars did Eagle actually make?
Oh, they made a lot.
Oh, because I only remember the Eagle Talon.
There was a Jeep. They were working with Jeep, and they were trying to make like it was an SUV before it was an SUV.
Okay.
It was an SUV when you still had to work with frame on body and like U-joint technology, where you had to have like it's like, well, we can have a little ground clearance here, but we got to put this car body on this truck ride, and then we're gonna have to put this driveline under it where there's actually like a transaxle, and we got joints coming out either end and an engine going in here. Yeah, those are like, some people actually make the older Eagles into like survivor cars.
Huh.
Because I guess the outdrives on them are like chain drive instead of gear drive, so they're not super robust, but they're easy to fix.
Huh.
It's like if you break a gear, you got to take the whole front of the car apart. Or if you bust a chain, you just got to get inside that housing, and you could usually do it from inside the car. I know people that had those, and they had weird engines in them, like 4-liter 4-cylinders or something. Just strange engines that produced a lot of torque, got shitty gas mileage, had no horsepower, but they were designed to twist 4 wheels. Because when it really got crazy, some of those cars, I don't know if the Eagles did, some of those were full-time 4-wheel drive. Like it was all 4 wheels driven, whatever the ratio was. Usually it's 60 from the back, 40 from the front or something. And yeah, those were fun to turn with. Especially when shit started wearing out, you're just fighting it around corners. I know people that had them though. But yeah, the Eagle brand kind of went away because that was like, it was like when AMC split off and then came back, and they bought up different parts of the company. That's where those weird cars come from.
Yeah.
But I think Dodge tried to bring the Eagle name back in the 90s, like early 90s.
Yeah.
They had like the Eagle TSI, the Eagle. Because I remember the Eagle Talon had a very odd transmission in it, and if it blew out outside of warranty, people just usually took them to the junkyard because the transmission was $9,000 to replace. Because there was something about how it was made, I don't know. But I know most people, if the transmissions blew up, they're like, nope, because you weren't getting a $1,000 junkyard special where you could replace your transmission. It was always something elaborate. Same thing with the what was it, the Stealth? I think the Stealth had an
Dodge
Eagle.
Stealth. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it had an Eagle sub brand or something, or maybe that was a Mitsubishi. I don't know. All those weird car companies kind of consolidated and worked together.
Yeah, this is around the same time they tried to bring Plymouth back too.
Yeah.
And they had like the Plymouth Prowler, and then they made like we've actually had it, but the Neon, there wasn't just a Dodge Neon. There was a Dodge Neon, a Plymouth Neon, and a Chrysler Neon.
Yep. I had the Plymouth. It was called the Highline.
Yeah.
The red one was a Plymouth, actually. It had the weird, like the open book, the quill, and the pin, and it said Plymouth on my steering wheel, but that was the only place it said it. Didn't say Plymouth on the front and the back of the car. It had the Dodge emblem on the front, and on the back it said Neon. And it's like, okay, it's a Plymouth Highline. Cool. It's a good cheap car. I drove the hell out of that car. I think when it finally gave up the Ghost, I had 160 on it.
Yeah, we drove ours to like 200 or something.
Yeah, I had one of the stick shift ones, which made it a lot less. I guess the automatic transmissions in those they could get frightening after a while. Wasn't yours doing that? Wouldn't it bang when you went over?
I can't. They had some heating issue, and like I might have killed it by putting like antifreeze in it or something.
Oh,
But it was a good car while it lasted. But
yeah.
I remember there used to be like Dodge Neon Racing Leagues because
Yeah.
they're like good beginner racing cars because it was a short car but it had a really wide body for a short car.
And very wide stance. Very
Yeah. So they were good for like beginning racing cars.
People put turbochargers in them. Knock holes in the hood. Have those weird exhausts.
Fart
Yeah,
can.
The exhaust sticking out the back like this far. A foot and a half of exhaust that's worth more than the car. Tuned exhaust from Japan. Yeah, why? What are you doing?
It's also like the era of like putting subwoofers in your car and stuff like that.
I missed that. I never could do it because I didn't have the money. Just the raw cash that took.
Yeah.
The know-how. It's like I failed on both accounts. But I like people that did it.
They always seemed to be weird, like sketchy about the people who actually did that because they weren't. It's like your parents aren't rich. Like you must be selling drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, there was always like the number of people that got into like major felony drug sales was not. It's not because they watched too much Miami Vice. It's because they wanted a bigger subwoofer, or they were thieves.
Yeah, that too.
The one guy always like listen to this, and then the next day people are just ripping everything out of his car. Yeah, I remember those. I know someone who got a ball bat taken to his head over that.
I mean, I remember like
I didn't see it, but I heard about
I
it.
was in a woodworking class and like the two burnouts in the class, like all they wanted to do was make subwoofer boxes. It's like
Big particle board car. Yeah, you get particle board, and then that automotive carpet.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like yeah, there's no way you can afford this stuff.
Stencil the kicker logo on the back. Yeah, that was always weird. I always wanted one of those stereos. I was like, how much does that cost? It was like $2,000 or $3,000. It was like, and this is in like early '90s money. It's
Yeah.
like, where are you getting this fucking money? That became the quest. It's like, fuck subwoofers. And then I found out, and I was like, oh, I'm out. And like I said, once people started getting aluminum bats wrapped around their head, I was like, oh, this is not the hobby for me.
But also, this is the days where like you had like that little thing on the you took off the front end and took it with you, so people wouldn't steal your CD player and shit like that. So
Yeah, I had that.
the days of just like car theft, like that was the heady days of car theft.
Oh yeah, I could break into any car at any time. I mean, I didn't, of course, because I'm a good person. But I knew how to get into. I knew people that just locked their keys in their car because they could just break into their own car faster than they could use a key. Or as nothing's funner than your friends. It's like, oh, you got your keys in the ignition. You got to call someone. No, we don't. The old Slim Jim in the door, and down the road you went.
I got lucky one time. I locked my keys in my car, and I did that thing where you're like staring at the keys as you're closing the door. It's like, what am I doing?
I see them. There they go.
So I locked the keys in my car, but luckily, and this was the Neon, and it didn't have power windows.
Oh, you just pulled them down.
No, it was already down.
Oh, okay.
So that like oh fuck, it's like, oh, I just reach in and unlock the door. It's like I got lucky with that. Yeah.
Yeah, my car does an annoying thing. I left the keys in the cup holder, and I hit the lock button. Like I locked it, and I closed the door, and the lock immediately unpopped. And I was like, "What?" Because I thought my keys were in my pocket. I was like, "Why are you doing this?" So I hit the lock button twice and closed it, and then I was like, "Oh shit, my keys are in there." So I went in the house and got the spare set. Unlocked the door with the spare set. As soon as I opened the door, this thing goes nuts. Like the horn's going off, the lights are going off. And I'm like, what the hell? And then I get in the car with both sets of keys and I hit start. And then I see some message on my screen. It was like, vehicle theft in progress. And I was like, no. And then it started honking the horn again when I pressed no. So I just got out of the car with both sets of keys and locked it and walked away. And I haven't heard anything else. I drove it days later, but I was like, this is weird. Who are you telling that to? The guy stealing the car? theft in progress. Yes.
Thanks for narrating my life, computer.
I know this is a hot property.
um,
Get me a 1-liter Fusion and be the king of the road.
and then today, this had nothing to do with anything, but I remember today I listened to a podcast. I discovered one of the lost songs in my head of the 90s, which was Super Drag's Sucked Out.
Okay. I to remember this one.
It's like, who sucked out the feeling?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I spent probably the last 10 years trying to remember that. Not occasionally I'm like, what's that song? And all I remembered about the band is that Super was in the name.
Right.
And then like when I like look it up with my vague recollections of what the fuck is that song, like nothing comes up. And then like looking for the band Super, the thing that only came up was Supertramp. But like nothing to do with Superdrag. So that one got knocked out of the way, and the only other song, there's one more song on the list that I don't know. I remember the song was like the band's in a diner and it has a weird green hue to it, and it's kind of a Weezer-esque song that gets very dark.
Is the chorus "Do You Want to Die"?
No.
Okay, it's not that one. Okay.
No. That's Toadie's Possum Kingdom.
That's what I was thinking of. I was like, kind of sounds like Weezer at first, and it's got a weird video.
The video is almost like, oh shit, I completely forgot that song. There was a comparison I had to make, but it was like, fuck. Oh well. Anyways, yeah. So I got one more on the list of lost '90s songs. I'm pretty sure if I just watched like any taping of like 200 minutes, or what was it, 200 minutes?
120 minutes.
120 minutes, like
Pinfeld.
yeah, like just watch a whole episode of that from like the late 90s. I'm pretty sure I could find the song I'm looking for. But
If you remember any of the lyrics.
no.
That phone app, like you can just play music into it and identifies the song
Yeah,
immediately.
Shazam, yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
But yeah, that's the thing. Like I know I have a general vagueness of how the song feels. I don't remember the lyrics. I don't remember the band name. I do remember the video.
I was like that with a Paul Simon song called "The Obvious Child." It's like I couldn't remember. Do you remember that song?
No.
That kind of is his. He had.
I don't think I've heard
renaissance.
any Paul Simon.
He kind of had a weird renaissance in the '90s because he did like 2 albums back to back, and it was kind of cool because it wasn't Simon and Garfunkelish. It was kind of just him, but he would do things with like maracas and tambourines, and yeah, I remember there was one of those. It's like, what was that song? Yeah, so we watched a movie this week.
Yeah.
It was the
Netflix's Extraction.
Extraction with Chris Hemsworth and a bunch of other people I don't know.
Yeah. Well, this seemed to be shot with a lot of Bollywood people.
Is he the one who plays Thor?
Yeah.
Okay, same guy. Because I know there's another Hemsworth, isn't there? It's like his brother or something.
Yeah, Liam Hemsworth.
Okay.
He was in. He's an actor as well. There's also a third Hemsworth who I think has only been in like SNL sketches as like the like people like he was like in the sketches himself and was like, how's it feel to be the least famous Hemsworth or whatever.
Yeah, the oldest one.
Yeah. I was weird. I saw one of the Being the Elite, the Young Bucks. They were doing they were doing one of their YouTube videos because right now they haven't done an AEW show for like a month, so they've been doing stuff at their house.
Yeah.
And so they have a third brother. So like they're two brothers, but they're wrestlers. They don't necessarily look alike. The weird thing is the younger brother is like balding slightly, but he's the youngest brother, and the other one isn't. But then they have a third brother who's actually the youngest, and he looks nothing like them. It's like fat, balding. It's fucking weird.
That is strange. Like genetics will just get you.
Yeah. Yeah, brothers. Yeah, so the director of this, he was Chris Evans. Is that right? The guy who plays Captain America.
Yeah.
So he's Chris Evans' stunt double for the all the Marvel movies.
Okay.
And so this guy at some point got upgraded to like being stunt choreographer for all the MCU movies, and now, and this is written by Joe Russo, one of the Russo brothers who been directing the last last two Avengers movies.
Okay.
So that's the pedigree of this movie. So that's why there's so much action. It's directed by a stuntman, so that's why it's a very stunt heavy movie.
Very violent movie.
It's also based on a comic book, but I haven't. I tried looking up stuff on that, and I haven't. It's called like
It seems
Siado or something like that.
It seems sort of John Wick at some points.
Yeah.
It's like one guy fighting a ridiculous amount of people with very fast, pistol movements and shooting and knives and.
Yeah, this is a fucking cool action movie.
Yeah, it's a good action movie.
Yeah, it's not a good other movie. Yeah, it's not a good other movie. It's just a good action movie.
I like the guy who worked for the drug dealer's dad.
Yeah.
That guy did a good job of looking scary and menacing.
Yeah, and vulnerable.
And vulnerable. Yeah, just available, like saying goodbye to his family and shit. It was like, yeah, these people all have motivations. And these drug dealers in India are awful people. It was one thing that caught me off the guard. I mean, I know there's crime in India. I just don't ever think about crime in India.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this isn't an accurate representation of it. But I've never thought of like, it's just like, oh yeah, this is. And the movie was not shot in India. It was shot in Bangladesh, which is right next to India.
Well, no, I think it's the other way around. I think it takes place in Bangladesh, but it was shot in. Fuck. Or maybe I'm getting it wrong. I mean, this is like whatever Bollywood is, like that's where they shot this.
Yeah, this is shot in Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Oh, okay.
And
what's it supposed to represent? What city is this supposed to be?
It's supposed to be someplace in India.
Yeah, but I just can't remember.
Oh wait, no, it's in Bangladesh. It's in Dhaka, Bangladesh. That's where the movie's set.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I believe it's shot somewhere else, or at least they did.
It was shot in two places in India for principal photography.
Yeah.
And then the action shots were done in Thailand.
Okay.
And other things were done in Bangladesh. I guess the Bangladeshis were not happy about it. Their country.
I also like that. What's her name? Nick, like the handler.
Oh yeah.
She just had a look to her, like, and her carrying, she's like 4 feet tall, carrying around like a 6-foot sniper rifle. She just looked cool with it. It's like,
she's Iranian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's from Iran. She's actually a beautiful woman. She's
yeah.
extremely beautiful woman. Because I looked her up as soon as I watched the movies. Who is that woman?
Yeah, it's like I want to see her in more things. Who the fuck is this?
Yeah,
but she'll never be anything because she's not a white American.
Well, I don't know. The lady who plays kind of has a very young version of the lady who plays in the
Avra Sarala.
Yeah, and they're both from Iran, so there must be that Persian look. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like there's a very striking looking woman. Hey, if you can work in English, they'll find a script for you.
Yeah.
And as long as they're getting these foreign countries to fund these movies, they'll find a place for you in the cast. They'll do Transformers 6 in India. I mean, you get a Transformers 12 or whatever it's up to now.
But yeah, this is his first time directing like a feature-length movie. I think he's done a bunch of shorts beforehand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there's definitely like problems, I guess, with the movie. But like compared this to like Six Underground, this is so far much better than that fucking movie.
Yeah, this was good. This kind of put me in it's like a movie from another place, like District 9.
Yeah.
like, okay, here's a country I know exists. I know where it is. I mean, I roughly know where India and Bangladesh are, and it's like I just don't imagine it being like this. But it was also, it was cool in a way. Um, it was just it was so crowded. It was such a crowded movie.
Yeah.
Like, how are these people not hitting innocent bystanders?
Oh, they are.
Yeah, well, the bad guys are.
Yeah. I thought it was weird when I was looking up the Wikipedia for this, and like, there's like a bunch of like reviews, like saying like, "Oh, this is guilty of being a
A White Knight movie,
not well, yeah, it's white. What's that? White savior movie."
White Savior. Okay, yeah, I just shit.
Which I guess I know what they're getting at. It's like, here's a foreign world, and the only person who's good's a white guy. Like, I know that argument, but he's not a good person.
Happens, yeah.
He's not doing this because like he's had a because
He's not bringing civilization to the savages.
no,
He's bringing savagery.
nor is he like becoming a morally responsible person. It's like, this is he's trying to kill himself without killing himself, and then this is the most admirable way he can do it at the time.
Right.
This is suicide by action movie.
Yeah. This is a guy who's sort of disconnected from, because David Harbour shows up in the middle of it as kind of a weird aside. It's like, hey, remember me from Stranger Things? Trying to forget about that, Hellboy movie, even though I didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, I've heard that. I knew that would come up with this. They did that with Great Wall too, which was it wasn't a great movie, but it was entertaining. Because Matt Damon and the other guy were going to China to try to get the secret of gunpowder, and they find out, oh, they built the Great Wall because there's demons that they're, remember that movie?
Yeah.
Had spectacular scenes, but it was 100% Chinese funded movie, basically, where they hired actors from America, because I think Willem Dafoe was in it for a little bit.
Yeah.
And the reason they do that is because they want to get an American and European big bucks audience.
Yeah.
But that's not because we went in and pushed Matt Damon went in and was pushing Chinese people around like, I'm going to be in your movie. I don't think Chris Hemsworth went into Bollywood and just started grabbing people and tossing them around. So, yeah, if you want to make a movie about the world and you want to get a wide audience of people that will watch, not a white audience, a wide audience, people that want to watch it. I mean, I learned about 3 actors in this movie I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
Because I watch it. I already knew Chris Hemsworth's, like, that's Thor, and I've never actually, this is the first time I've heard him speak in his native accent, or that I can remember it. Because usually he's doing like a weird British or American accent.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's doing in Thor, just kind of vaguely British. But...
Yeah, it's Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Because it's that weird dialogue. What they call Game of Thrones English. Because I thought Peter Dinklage was an English actor until I heard him interviewed. I was like, oh, okay. An accent, okay. But yeah, that kind of shit is that's just whatever. I ignore that. That's part of a culture that is irrelevant to me. If you want to have those arguments amongst yourselves, go ahead. You're not going to change my opinion on whether I like this movie or not.
I mean, also, like, I'm not going to be sensitive to that. I just don't think this necessarily fits that profile. Like, it's not intentionally done. Like, I could see, like, oh, they just didn't know. It's like, but like, it's not like we filmed this in another country and then like the entire cast is white. It's like, no, like, it's like 3 white guys and everybody else is like from the country.
Yeah, and the sexy lady in it is Iranian. She's not Indian. She's not, she's Persian. Totally different person.
And none of the white guys are good.
Oh, they're all shit.
They're all mercenaries.
These are people that, like, do you just save people? Sometimes, it's like you do other things too, Yeah, that's what it was. So.
But I thought also, like, Chris Hemsworth, for like pretty a just kind of a boilerplate character, I think he brings gravitas to it. Like,
yeah, him and that kid the kid he was protecting, like, they did a good job acting.
Yeah,
and, like, being friends. Like, they seem to have a real thing where it's like, oh, this kid is, kind of a lost person in his own. And he had to kill someone. That's always good for a teenager.
I always like the also the like up close reloads where you're like pinning somebody with your gun while you reload, and then as soon as you reload, shoot them with it.
Fire straight into their body, point blank. Yeah, there was some great. Like I said, this is kind of John Wick-esque.
Yeah, it doesn't have like the. There's not like a whole lot of what do you call it? Like
It's not as
there's not world building or like character studies. There's not like mythos. There's none of that. It's just a straightforward action movie. It's like here's the chessboard, here's the chess pieces, here's the game.
Yeah, it's not as cartoonish as John Wick. Like I said, it kind of called me back to like District 9, where it's like a movie that's taking me away from anything I'm from. Like I know what Los Angeles and Chicago looks like.
Yeah.
But this is just something else. Even Mexico City is kind of like, oh, that's otherworldly. You know, so that was cool. You know, but it was basically good guys, bad guys, mostly bad guys, and the good guys were only incidentally good.
Yeah.
It was like not to their benefit to be bad, completely evil.
But also, even though I think there's a definitive ending, they left room for a sequel, so they're already making.
The blurry out of scene shot. It's like, who's the guy standing there? And they're already filming a sequel, so I think we know. This is still a $70 million movie.
Okay, I would say that seems low because it's just wall to wall action, but that's the benefit of shooting in a foreign country. You get a lot of your money's worth. So.
Oh well, you're paying Hemsworth and the other guy. I don't know. Is that
well,
more?
Hemsworth had a production credit, so maybe he didn't take so much upfront money for it. But I don't know.
There seemed to be some good CG special effects in this, so I'm guessing that's where a lot of the money went.
Well, no, just like anything you do practical is just lots of money.
Yeah.
And like the amount of like people, they just like the amount of crowd stuff, car stuff. You know, there's that whole 11-minute one take shot that was clearly stitched together, but still
Look cool.
They probably had to do every piece of that multiple times. It's like reset. We're gonna get a second shot for the day.
No, but it looked good.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting too much out of it, so I was
No.
pleasantly surprised.
Well, yeah, because most of these Netflix movies have been mostly disappointing. So
yeah, it's like save us, Netflix.
and this is another one of their obvious big budget ones, like 6 Underground or Triple Frontier, and this is the best one of the bunch.
Yeah, this is better. This is even better than Triple Frontier, which Triple Frontier was good at being cool, but it didn't maintain
C- Michael Mann movie.
Yeah, it didn't maintain my interest like this one did.
No.
Because then they had the sub story with the kid who was working for the crime lord that owned the controlled DACA.
Yeah.
And he got like cutting his finger off. It's like proved loyalty. Couldn't wait to kill Liam Hemsworth, and then finally, ultimately did. Spoilers. Or gave him a wound that seemed to be fatal at the time. Usually an AK to the neck is fatal, but movie, so. And falling into that polluted water off that bridge is not going to do anything.
Well, also, he took a sniper bullet to the chest or something.
Yeah, somewhere. The world's greatest sniper. Was that like that colonel that controlled the police in the city was providing sniper cover? Which gave him something to do. Those are those scary looking guys from that part of the world.
Yeah.
Like Indian guy, we have engineers that look like that guy, and you don't ever want to argue with those guys. Those guys might just take their belt off and start hitting you with it. Because, they grew up somewhere mean.
I had an idea, and this kind of vaguely had somewhat, this kind of like hits on what I was thinking of. But everyone's doing extended universe movies, and but that's probably going to die out because only Disney does it well, and they're starting to falter at it. So
they're starting to run out of gas too.
But I had an idea. You do like B grade, low budget action movies, and they're all called like whatever the country. You have like you know, The American, The Frenchman, stuff like that. And they're all action movies, and they're all based around. You have like some person who is trained in some special forces or police thing from that country, and like they specifically use like their training in the action movie. It's like they're, you know, they have a character, and the training is a part of their character and who they are, and it represents their country and all that shit.
And these guys are gonna form the Dirty Dozen, like what the 12.
Well, you have like 5 movies, and they're all just like about these one guys, and not every guy is a good guy. Some guys are like, you know, they're getting fucked over by worse guys, and so by proxy of the movie, they're the good guys, but they're still bad people. And then you just have like, you know, eventually you have the Avengers, where it's like it teams up, and like all the guys come together for one big action movie, and then that's where you dump your money in.
One big one big B action movie,
Yeah.
all set in Detroit.
The Frenchman and the Irishman are really going at it in Detroit. And you just have like that styles clash of like different fighting things and gunplay and stuff like that. So, like UFC, but with like guns and knives.
But you shoot them in really, like the Frenchman. You don't shoot it in Paris. You shoot it in like what was that weird movie we watched on IFC channel or whatever? The one about the other mob in Italy, where it looked like they were living in a wasteland.
Oh, Gomorrah?
Yeah, it's like, you shoot it in a part of France that looks like Gomorrah. Like everything's shot at like the worst parts of whatever country it is.
Just kids with automatic AK-47 shooting shit on a beach.
Probably not France, but it really, I don't know. France has a lot of violent crime though. But
Yeah.
Did you hear about what was it? The people in France on lockdown, they just shoot into police cars.
No.
Yeah, they'll like go up to the police and like they're gonna ask questions like, "Hey, how do you get?" And they just start shooting into the police cars. Like that's become a thing. Not all over Paris, but in certain parts.
Yeah.
And it's because they're angry because they're not allowed to leave, so they're just gonna go shoot the police. Okay. But it's not like
that's gonna lead to changes. There's gonna be no repercussions because of that.
that'll lead to changes, all right.
I know, like who called them like cheese eating surrender monkeys?
Yeah,
like, that's what we like to refer to. But like, there's some, you know, the French has a long history of military operations and police actions, and some of those people are not to be fucked with.
Well, you gotta remember, before the Second World War, the French were the ultimate badasses of Europe. I mean,
Yeah.
had the English, but they were kind of off on the island, and they had the advantage of a water bridge between them and France. But yeah, go back to the Napoleonic Wars and then the wars that came after. The people to be afraid of were the French. That's why when people talk about, it's like, oh, they'd be speaking German if it wasn't for us. It's like, you're not looking at their whole history, which is way longer than ours. You don't understand these people will. I mean, now they're kind of comfortable and they've definitely don't seem to have a government like ours. But yeah, you just push people a little bit and see where it goes. And they, like I said, they have crazy violence there all the time. I don't know if it rivals us because they're just smaller, but I'm thinking percentage-wise, your chances of being in a violent altercation are a little higher than Europe than they are here, where people are going to steal your money or something. Like, I think there's more of that because they all live in cities.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to get like hit up for and robbed at gunpoint on my way to Quiznos in my car from my house. I'm not walking around anywhere.
Also, like the government in France is always in constant flux. Like they've changed their government type like almost like 25 times in the last 30 years.
Seventh Republic or something like that. Grayson knows more about than I do. He's like a huge. Grayson knows a lot about the Napoleonic Wars, not just Napoleon, but his son and some of the people that came after, and what the consequences were. He knows all that stuff.
Yeah.
He has dense tomes that he's read that were only recently translated into English. It's like, son, you could really dedicate yourself and learn those in the original French. And he's like, no, that's not happen. But just an idea. He's like, well, when you learn Russian to read the Cold War stuff, I'll learn French to read the French stuff. I'll give you that. I'm not going to learn Russian anytime soon.
At least French has the same alphabet.
Yeah, at least it's like based on something I can understand. Yeah. So yeah, he's the expert for that kind of stuff. I just know it's not as nice as we think it is. We just think of like the Eiffel Tower, and because I mean, I have the Eiffel Tower like here. I have French stuff all over the walls. Never go to those places and never have the money to, but it's like even I have a distorted impression of. I just like the architecture behind the Eiffel Tower. So. And I also think French make cool, weird cars. I like their thinking on cars. Not anything they make now, but the stuff they used to make, like the Citroen, or just the slope-backed car, where you compress air on all four shocks. That was your shock absorption system, was compressed air, and it was weird and it didn't balance all the time, but it worked. Like you jumped in the car, hit the on button, and your back came up, and it was always a comfortable ride. Now, of course, they were like really tiny and very underpowered. They weren't like cars we drive, but it's like that's sort of cool in its own way. Like the French just decided we're just going this way, fuck everyone else. It's like just compressed air as a suspension system isn't a good idea. We don't care what you think. We're doing it, and they sold a lot of them in France. Nobody else bought them, but they loved them.
I saw an interesting YouTube video where Sean Bean was doing some Waterloo thing for the History Channel.
Okay, yeah.
And then so he was like doing behind the scenes stuff where they got like a rifle from that era and like fired it into ballistic gel, and they had like a thing to represent bone, the same density of bone, and like the bolt just like evaporated everything.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh, there's no bone left. This would have to be amputated.
Like 60 caliber ball.
Yeah. And like, yeah, it was Sean Bean shooting it, and he's also like narrating it, so it's like has a lot more gravitas to it than it actually should, because it's just Sean Bean talking.
Bullet probably goes 500 feet per second, but it has so much mass behind it.
Yeah.
Got this huge throw weight. It's like this wouldn't go deep, but anything it hit is gonna annihilate. They have a pistol. You know the 30 caliber carbine rifle from World War II.
Yeah.
Okay, the magazine fed one. They have a
M1 carbine.
Yeah, they have a pistol now based off the 1911 platform that shoots M1 carbine rounds.
Yeah, they the Demolition Ranch guy. This is a different gun. I think it was called like the 3 mag and the 5 mag. It was a gun made in the 80s, but yeah, it shoots 30 rounds.
Yeah, it's like holy shit. Off that because those guns are very loud in their rifle form.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine what that sounds like.
Oh, it's super loud, and also it's funny because the round is designed to be in a rifle barrel for a lot longer, so a lot of gas just escapes. So you're mostly just shooting fireballs out of that thing.
So who shoots it? The Demolition Ranch guy?
Yeah.
Okay, I just saw a video of what the gun looked like. I didn't know.
Cause it's a company that's not around anymore. It's called like the 3 Auto Mag or the 5 Auto Mag.
Oh, okay.
And it's like a gun from the 80s.
It's like Cunanan or some of those people that don't.
It's something like kind of like pre-Desert Eagle.
Okay.
But like he fires it, but like the it's like there's rubber grips on the side, but the rubber grip doesn't go around the back of it, so the back of it's just metal, so it's terrible to shoot it.
Yeah. This is a new one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to buy one. Probably won't. I'm sure those are custom. You know, that's not quite custom work, but that's really close. They're not gonna be making a lot of those. It's like a Wildy Magnum. Like they're not making a lot of those. I did see. I watched the video where he was talking about that movie Death Wish. Ian was, and he tried to use a Wildy Magnum on a like a gun drill on a course.
Yeah. And
of course he had all kinds of failure to feed problems and stuff. But when he was hitting the target, like the ting, and it usually falls over because you're hitting it with a 9mm. The targets were like gong, and they flop right back. It's like, hey, you're shooting a rifle round out of a pistol, essentially. You're something very close to it.
Yeah, the Action Boys that did I was listening to one of their podcasts about the Death Wish. I think it's just the original Death Wish, and there's I don't know if this is true, but it's like a funny statement about like how Charles Bronson came to do that movie, and like I guess the guy who wrote it was like talking to him, was just talking to him about the script he wrote.
Yeah.
And he's like talking about like, yeah, a guy goes around and like kills like rapists and thieves. And it's like, yeah, I'll do. And like Charles Bronson like, yeah, I'll do that. And he's like, what, you want to do this movie? He's like, no, kill rapists and thieves.
You have to do a movie. Charles Bronson's interesting. Yeah.
Oh, that was the other thing I thought. Yeah, now I remember the Action Boy stuff I thought was interesting. They're talking about like the Dirty Harry movies. Or they just did the first one. They'll probably do more. And they're recontextualizing because like we just see it now. It's like, oh, here's a ridiculous conservative fantasy action movie.
Yeah.
But they're talking about like how like really the thing about that movie, like how it was received at the time, is that like is like Miranda rights is a new thing.
Yeah.
And so like they explain a lot of that stuff in the movie, and like, you know, people, and that like that really hasn't had it at that time, that hadn't been in like police procedural movies.
No.
So that was kind of like, and it was a, you know, Miranda rights is a good thing, but here that's kind of presented as like, oh, you're just letting all these rapists and thieves go because like the police work isn't 100%. Like,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the, you know, the fantasy.
Well, a lot of the things with that movie too that people forget is that movie came out at a time in America. Because when is that? 1970,
Yeah, it was 70 something.
early 70s. That came out in a time, because I think the one after that, the one with the lady from Hill Street Blues, I think that was called The Enforcer.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the next one was Magnum. The second was Magnum Force, I thought.
okay, what was the one where the people were stealing the law rockets?
I'm gonna look it up. I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, because it was the lady who from Hill Street Blues was in it. She was like, it was
See
controversial.
the lady cop?
Yeah,
I thought that was like the fourth one.
abroad as a cop. That's
Yeah.
never gonna happen.
71 for the first Dirty Harry movie.
Yeah, that was actually I've heard something. The guy, because I think it's Siegel wrote the script for that.
Yeah.
That was actually written as kind of a response to, like, Dirty Harry was there to destroy the counterculture that was ruining San Francisco. Because a lot of people forget, like, he was a San Francisco cop.
Yeah.
Like, you don't think of San Francisco like that now, but back then, like it was written kind of as like, oh, look, you know, because I think who was it, the Night Stalker killer? Because that movie was about a serial killer,
Yeah.
I believe. And yeah, this was like, it was written as it was like a counterculture to the counterculture movie. That's what that whole thing was.
So the third one's called The Enforcer. There's a lady cop and they steal rockets.
Okay. Yeah, now that was aimed at the, I know, because I listened to a whole podcast or something was talking about that. That was aimed at like the Weather Underground. You remember them?
No.
They were like radical leftist. They were actually like blowing up universities and shit. Like there were over 700 terrorist attacks in America committed by Americans against other Americans in the 1970s. It was mostly those radical underground groups from the 60s that were anti-war and like the, you know, Black Panther types and all that. There was a lot of terrorism in this country then. And because I know that one was actually written as like a, yeah, this is what we're going to do to these guys. We're going to get big revolvers and blow them apart because, you know, we're real Americans and stuff. But yeah, those movies are very much a product of, they really resonated at the time they came out.
Yeah.
Now, like you were saying, and those guys were saying on that podcast, now you watch them, it's like, oh, this is a goofy anachronism. Back then, it was like, yeah, that spoke to a lot of America, not just the right wing, but people that didn't like the crazy, like, because imagine if, like, what's our crazy leftist group now, like Antifa. Okay, imagine if they were going around blowing up buildings like every other month, like they were putting a bomb in the University of Iowa because they were working on something for a weapon system and they like killed 10 people. Imagine if that was happening all over the country and it was one group that was doing it. I mean, god damn, they'd go completely crazy. Now people just start shooting each other now, but back then it was a little more, not as many people either, and they all didn't have computers to get on and feed each other nightmare fuel. But yeah, those movies are very much they're like in a time and a place. It doesn't really exist anymore. I mean, it does in some people's mind. People that still think Ronald Reagan was a good president, they would like these movies. Like, yeah, see, this is what they should have done.
So this is the problem with America. You give everyone a participation trophy, and they go to terror. They convert to terrorism.
They convert to Islam and kill us all. They want to give our kids free medicine in college. Fuck those commies. I want my kid to grow up hard, scrabble, and poor, just like, because my kid ain't gonna be better than me. That's ultimately what it all comes back to. Circles around to. It's like, my kid's not gonna be more successful than me. Fuck that. He's had it too easy. School said I couldn't beat the shit out of him every day like my dad did. Oh, sports parents. I met some of those guys.
There's
Get your kid. Like, never. What the fuck are you talking
I remember overhearing a customer one time, and they seemed to have like a learning disability,
more than likely?
and there was like a baby just like crying, or a child just crying, annoyingly, but it's what they do, whatever. They saw something they wanted, and they said no, and now everyone has to hear about it.
Beat the fuck out of him.
Yeah, it's basically like
That'll make him stop.
when I was a kid, my dad would he'd hit me if I ever screamed like that. And it's like, I wonder why you're mildly.
That's why you can't write. Is that where this got you? Is this a success story?
Is this why you live with grandpa and you can't have bananas around you?
That's why you wake up screaming every night? The legacy continues. We weren't born slow and stupid. We feed into us.
We were born into it, forged by
I was forged by my father's fists. Father before him. Like, you see a cycle here? Don't give me that liberal horse shit. Okay. Yeah, I've heard conversations like that. The whole participation trophy argument. People shouldn't get, so they shouldn't get acknowledged for showing up and trying. I mean, we're not saying you won. We're not saying like, oh, everyone wins. I've never seen that.
Well, I that's always like given by people who like just think
anything.
Well, like the first time I think like the biggest speech that got shared around Facebook by all the conservative nonsense associations on my Facebook feed is some coach, like, because their team lost, and it's like, oh, it's all about people don't work for it anymore. Everyone's being content with participation trophies and stuff like that, and like never asking once if like a person who is like a high-end athlete, whether they actually appreciated a participation trophy, because like we got those in T-ball. Like, I didn't give a fuck about that. It's like I didn't feel like I earned it. I like that's on me to feel whether I deserved it or not, and I didn't.
Yeah,
and I wasn't even good at baseball, and it's not like the kids who went on to be good at baseball felt good about their participation trophy.
I still remember that participation trophy. In the background with the horns. Dun, 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 my participation trophy.
And it's also the whole thing about the participation trophy is like, why was that created? It wasn't some like liberal third grade teacher think needs to build the self-esteem of the character. It's because these parents spent all this money on fucking baseball and they want something in return.
Yeah. Basically a salve for the parents' wound.
Yeah.
It became this social thing. Like, I don't know.
It's not a good argument, but like people love to point it out. This is the problem with America: participation trophies.
My life was hard when I was growing up. No, it wasn't. Nothing was expected of you. You're a fucking moron. How was it hard? I don't get it. I mean, I don't go for the softest, weirdest shit either. But it's like, yeah, just shut the fuck up. I get it. Your life sucked. Okay, I'm sure your dad was a fucking vengeful psychopath. I get it, but it doesn't.
And I'm
mean
sure you're proud of surviving that.
Yeah, good on you. You probably need to go talk to someone about that. I'm glad I didn't have to grow up with that shit. But and I also don't want it to pollute the airwaves of my exit. If you want to have beliefs like that, go ahead. But just, let's not get those out there like it's some kind of cultural movement.
Well, luckily, like all this stuff is just like it's just passed on Facebook stuff. It's not like the person wrote it themselves. Like, yeah,
No.
I agree, and passed it on. And it's like, well, you're, you know, it's, at least you're not just spouting out like it's like I know you believe this, but at least you didn't like add your 2 cents.
I try not to put anything up unless it's a very hilarious, or it's something that originated with me. That's why I seldom post anything, or it's pictures of, building models or something I'm interested in. But yeah, I don't.
Yeah, the other one I saw was just something about like it seemed like this conciliatory, like it's like super conservative person, and like it seemed like this conciliatory thing about like Trump not being a great president, and then like the whole like twist at the end is like he should have ran in 2008, then all our problems would have been solved.
Oh yeah, it would have been much better letting Trump take on the Great Recession. That would have fucking smoothed that. I mean, based on what I've seen, you're right. The seeds of greatness were not sown that day. I don't think he could have won in 2008. That's the sad thing, is like how much it's changed.
No,
It's just gotten so fucking.
remember Obama was the most voted for president in history.
Yeah, everyone, even people that hated black people were like, "I'm voting for this guy." I'm not voting for another George Bush. I mean, there's 20 million people that voted for Obama twice that had to have voted for Trump. Like, that's really fucking weird. Those are the weird, and those are the silent. Like, those aren't the people that put you on Facebook and have Trump flags on their trucks. Those are the people that that's your librarian, your kid's teacher. Like, for some reason, there was something they hated so much about Hillary Clinton, they just had to vote for Trump. Maybe it was NAFTA. I don't. That was weird. What else? What was I gonna say? I don't know. It must not have been that important.
Participation trophies.
Nah, it was something. No, it wasn't about that, but it was something like, I don't know. I can't remember. I'm losing my mind. But yeah, that was. I lost the thread of it. Oh, it's like the people in Michigan showing up with guns at the courthouse, thinking that they're doing some good. And I was arguing with someone. Well, not arguing. I was talking to someone the other day. It's like, you know what? If those guys had showed up, if they'd brought out the AR-15s for like healthcare, I'd be there with them with my AR-15. Like, they never bring out the AR-15s for that. It's like free healthcare and pre-kindergarten, pre-K, preschool. If they showed up with guns for that, I might not show up with a gun, but I might show up with a sign like, I support this. Or maybe a gun. Fuck it. You might as well get your picture taken, get on their list. But yeah, they never bring the guns out for that. It's always this crazy shit.
Well, I think
there's reasons you should bring guns out. It's just not this.
Yeah.
It's not Gretchen Whitmer like, I don't want you to catch a bizarre virus that we don't understand that could either give you a cold or kill you. It's like somewhere in that continuum of things could happen. And all we're asking, we're not telling you can't leave your house. We're not bringing rations around to you and taking your guns. We're just saying, don't go hang out at a fucking concert.
Well, there's been like, because like always the 2A guys that are really hardcore into it, they seem to be snobbish. Like it's like only they can own the guns, because they. Well, it's like, well, like, the guys, like if you don't 100% know everything about a gun, then you're immediately a leftist liberal nonsense.
Oh yeah, those guys. Yeah.
If you own a High Point, it's like, it's like shaking your head. It's like you might as well just own might as well have a. Are
you an inner city gangster?
Where it's like a lot of like the Forgotten Weapons guys and stuff like that. There's like this kind of weird new twist on it where they're not about being snobbish about it. Like there's even like this weird like kind of like liberal tinge where it's about like guns should be for everybody. Like that's including like making guns that are easily accessible for people who are handicapped. Which that like anything that deals with handicap usually ends up being like exclusively like liberal. Like they're
Yeah.
only people looking out for handicapped people.
Yeah.
Because usually conservatives like that's a strain on our resources. We should just jettison those people.
Just quick fellow is all. Get them while they're young and kill the root before it grows. That's what the Bible says.
And there's been like other like even Iraq veteran 8888 he like goes on there talking about like it's like hey you're gonna do what you're gonna do but like you know we like to like be subtle with our like carrying our guns on us. We don't necessarily want people to everyone to know that we have a gun on us.
Yeah.
The Lucky Gunner ammo guy like he has some good points about like hey like because like he's always bringing up statistics and stuff about like you know self-defense encounters and stuff like that, and one of his points is like hey don't I know you like your gun but don't draw like a Punisher skull on it and like with like quotes about like you know the Pale Rider cometh and stuff like that, because if you have to like defend yourself at your home and then you're in court and they just throw pictures of your gun up there, you're immediately going to jail.
Yeah, they told us that here too. Don't buy like extreme devastation ammo. Use what because when I had to take my CCW class here, which was like a 24-hour class. They had a list. It's like this is what the state police use. This is what the local police use for hollow points. For self-defense, use this. If you want to use your death Punisher rounds, go use those on watermelons on range day. Because if you have those in your gun and you have to defend yourself, they're not going to look kindly on. It's like, oh, I just wanted to see a human being blown to pulp. It's like, did this guy have to defend himself or did he want to defend himself? Yeah, I don't. None of my guns are adorned with skulls and weird imagery, and yeah, and I'm one of those guys. If I'm not in my house, I always have a gun in my pocket. It's not huge. It's not, you know, it's a 38 special, but I don't fucking show people. I'm not waving it around in the parking lot. Hey, fuck you, pussies. Yeah, I don't support that. But again, I wish like the Michigan militia stands up to the governor. We want pre-K and free health care. It's like, great. This is something we can. Don't bring your guns. We can bring your bandanas and dress up like you're in the army, which you're not. But go ahead and pretend, whatever. Do your cosplay.
I like the Action Boys they were talking about that on one of their podcasts, and it was funny. It's like, why don't these guys ever watch action movies? And the takeaway being like, I should work out more and get in good shape. Like, no, just get the gun. That's easier.
Get the gun. Just look cool. Did you see the one where they photoshopped like giant dildos?
Yeah.
It's like huge balls and 10-foot long dildos. And...
Yeah, one guy he has his AR-15 pointed down. He's kind of resting his chin on like the butt of the gun, and like, and when they put the dildo in there, it's just like it looks like he's like loving like, oh, my dildo.
You want to know the weird thing though? I looked it up. If you walk around in Michigan with a dildo that big, you will be arrested and charged with that's indecent public behavior. But you can walk around with a fucking machine gun. Okay, that's kind of weird. I was surprised you could go into the Capitol with. I thought, I
didn't think you could go in there.
Got to be out because I remember the many times I've had to go to court here and plead the fifth. I couldn't even bring a fucking cell phone or a pin in.
Yeah.
Like, do these people can walk into the state house with a gun? It's okay. Well, they can't now. They're changing that law, but or they're trying to. But again, that's literally the number of people you can count on camera. The pictures they took of the guys doing that, it's literally not 5 more people than what they took pictures.
Yeah.
Everyone's not doing that. But when you do that, it definitely sends a weird message. It's like, what do you...
But when anybody does it and there's people supportive of it, that's when it feels weird.
Yeah.
Even if those people supporting it are probably bots in China, but, whatever.
Yeah, it was just Russian trolls. The Liberatsky of America. Amerikansky, we love the Constitution. Those guys. Now, weirdly enough, like a bunch of black dudes showed up and walked the one.
Yeah, they're like
State
guard.
assembly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and nobody said anything. They were just like, "That's kind of what you're doing. The same weird shit these guys are doing." But okay. But
Well,
they actually escorted a lawmaker in.
Well, I mean, like a lot of our modern gun laws are based on like when the Black Panther, because they're based on from California when the Black Panthers would like be outside.
Ronald Reagan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sure, that shit didn't happen again.
Yep. But the conservatives don't like to talk about that.
Oh. You know why you can't own machine guns in this country? The real reason why it all has to be pre-ban or you have to get weird paperwork is because of the Black Panthers and the Civil Rights Movement. It's not because, well, Prohibition had something to do with it, but they just specifically banned that type of weapon. But in the 80s, yeah, when they started banning you from owning those, period, it wasn't because they were worried about the Ku Klux Klan having an M60. It's because they were worried about black people having guns. Which is weird because, I mean, they have a presence in the city, but it's not like this widespread group around the whole country that's doing this shit. Not yet, but, keep showing up at the courthouses with your fucking Nazi flags and AR-15s, and you're going to get people riled up. Because around here, they all got their own guns. Like, that's what happened in Michigan. It was very democratizing when they made everything legal here. Because it was both blacks and whites filling the gun stores. I'll take 2 of those, 2 of those, 2 of those. Doing it for very different reasons, but the same reason. Ultimately, the white guys were in there like, I need to protect myself from these black dudes. And the black dudes were in there like, I need to protect myself from these white dudes. But then we all took classes together. Like, hey, what's going on? Hey, not good to meet you. It never came up that, like, I really bought this to shoot you, and you really bought that to shoot me. Yeah, because around here, the black dudes are just as well armed as the white people. Probably more so, because I don't worry about the police around here. Like, I don't have that extra layer. I'm just worried about someone coming into my house. That's really my ultimate worry, and it's never happened. But I'm not worried about, oh, am I going to go to the gas station and get shot by some nervous cop? That doesn't. It could happen, but not likely. But yeah, that was the democratizing of Michigan's gun laws. It's like everyone went out and bought guns. All parties, all races and creeds came together in mutual distrust and fear to load up on firearms. And this pandemic, God knows what's going to happen once this ends.
Yeah.
Because the gun stores were cleaned out here. I mean, they were like a carcass in the desert where it's just bones.
Yeah.
There was nothing left. It's like, where are all these guns going to end up? I mean, mine are still...
it'll be weird to see like how this, gun rights comes out of this. Because like some people are predicting, it's like, well, now you have a lot of liberal people that are owning guns for the first time, and now they're gonna have to like actually like think about like, well, I want my gun.
Oh, they won't. Just like all the guys in Hollywood that, they all have guns in their houses.
Yeah.
And it's like, they don't want you to have a gun. Guns should be limited to people with, incomes of $1 million or more. That's how those people roll.
Well, yeah.
Like Gavin Newsom, this guy's governor of California, is incredibly anti-gun. Thinks that what Pierre Trudeau's doing in Canada is great. He would love to do that in California, but he can't. But he is literally surrounded by armed state police people all the time that are there to protect his life. And that will continue in whatever else. When he becomes president of the United States or emperor of the universe or whatever, whatever he thinks he's going to do, it's like, yeah, those people really tick me off. Like, you don't need guns. It's like you're surrounded by armed professionals with guns. I just want to be able to hand someone the keys to my car so they can drive away and not shoot me in the back of the head so I'm not a witness. I want a chance to stop that from happening. That's all. That's it. I don't want to, swing down from a helicopter on a rope and, shoot terrorists. That's not that's not me. But, yeah, that's all that nonsense. Speaking of which, did you hear about that thing in Canada?
I mean, I guess, but like,
that was just double A weird. Like, that was super weird. He had a mocked up police car in his garage, and he had a police uniform that he made or acquired the pieces to. Some of the guns he used, he bought in America and smuggled into Canada somehow. But half the people, because he killed like 28 people, I think, but half of them he burned them. Like he just went in their house and shot people and then set the houses on fire and then would just drive to the next house and do the same thing.
Oh, I didn't know it was that.
No,
I
it's
didn't know that far-reaching of a thing. I
it was
thought
really weird. It was strange.
I assumed he just like found a populated area and just started opening fire.
He went from house to house to house, representing himself as a what are they? The Canadian RCMP guy.
Huh.
And he said, "Yeah, I'm here. I'm looking for so and so." And as soon as he got in the house, he just started shooting people, and he lit the house on fire. So the people that didn't die right away from being shot just burned up. And it's really weird. And this guy was a guy who made dentures for a living. But they said he was an alcoholic and he didn't get along with his wife. And because of the pandemic or whatever, it was kind of hurting his business. And then they said he did weird internet shit. And then you don't get any more information because everything from Canada is like top secret. You only get what the initial news stuff says, and then when you try to do any research, it's kind of vague. And how dare you for asking that kind of shit? Because they don't like that press up there. We love it here, but they don't like it too much up there. And but yeah, it just seems like this guy just snapped in the weirdest way you can imagine, and decided that this was the way he was going to go about it. I don't know. I'll wait till the documentary comes out. Sounds really weird though. It sounds like somebody just like.
Oh, last thing that happened up there was that incel guy, right?
Yeah, that was the guy who like drove the Renault truck over a bunch of people or something.
Yeah.
That's one thing the pandemic's been good for in America. Not a lot of mass shootings. Where do they all go? What do they do with all these Manchurian candidates, Alex Jones? Where are they?
They're just shooting themselves.
They're shooting themselves. Finally. Finally, we get the resolution we want.
Actually, I don't even know that. I mean, I wonder if there's a uptick in suicides or not.
Oh, yeah, the numbers are all. We're not going to know till a year from now. We'll be, if we're still alive, we'll be talking about it because I'm sure there's just been a bunch of weird shit that's gone on that like the Freakonomics guys are going to have to write out like what happened during the pandemic. But masturbation went through the roof. I still like the weird stories about the guys. Like they say, like people hitting their wives and kids has gone way up. And it's like, is that new? Because to me, that would have to be wired into someone. Like, if you're going to hit your wife and kids, you were always going to hit your wife and kids.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's like, is it just being reported now because people have nothing else to do? They don't have jobs and shit to worry about? Or I just don't think there's just a bunch of new guys on the scene that are just like suddenly, I'm using the wife and kids as soccer balls now. Did you ever do that before? No. Did you ever think about doing it before? No. But you're doing it now? That seems kind of weird.
It's like I actually have to know my child. I don't just send him off to school and come home from work drunk. Never really know my child.
They say like incest is on the uptick too. It's like, wait a minute. You hear these things on the news and you're like, wait a minute. No one just suddenly like fell into incest. You were always gonna do that. Maybe the motive is here, but I don't think it's like up by 50% or something. I don't know. It's just like how much fear can we get out of this?
Here's a new wrinkle of fear for you.
Yeah, here's something new and weird and awful and disturbing. Incest. Dun dun dun. It's like that's still going on at the same rate it always did. This can't be new. Or can it? I don't know. Come back to us with answers, listeners. That's all I got. Anything else you want to talk about?
No.
All right. Well, this week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Con. Goodbye, America.